All right, so this video is going to show you the second worksheet or the second exercise to complete when we're doing our color theory. So this worksheet is all about neutral colors, which actually aren't colors at all. Black, white, and gray are considered neutral. They don't have any hue. So if we look at a color wheel and we look at the hues along the outside of a color wheel, we don't see black, white, and gray. We just see the colors like of the wavelengths of light. And those are the hues on the color wheel. So now we're going to start talking about black, white, and gray. And again, if you're at home, I want you to use the materials that are available to you. If you have acrylic, like these little bottles of acrylic, you would need a bottle of black and white. Otherwise, and you can follow then the tempera painting version of this assignment. However, those of you at home that don't have acrylic and don't have tempera, you've got other options. Again, I'm going to do this in order of the preferred media. So the first preferred media would be your watercolor set. And you might look at it and you're like, well, I don't have black and white. Well, you have black, you don't have white. So in watercolor, white is just simply the paper because watercolor is transparent. The next one that you could use on the list is oil pastel. So there's a black and white oil pastel right there. And then if you have color pencils, you would need a black and white color pencil. Although I will show you if you don't have a white color pencil, what to do about that. We can make it work. So this is kind of what we're going for. The first thing you're going to need is a value scale, a 7-step value scale up at the top. This is about 1 inch high. I'm just going to use my ruler, and I do have parallelograms on there. You don't have to do parallelograms. You can just simply do squares. If you want to mimic the worksheet that I have, you can. You could also probably put it up on screen and trace it. Just be careful with your Chromebook screen. So I need 7 different spots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're about equal size. I'm going to go ahead and label this neutrals. Black, white, gray, no hue. So hue is that color wheel color name. All right, so again, watercolor, if you're going to do watercolor, what you're doing is you are making a value scale from white, and it's going to gradually step to gray and then black. So if you're doing watercolor, I actually recommend you start down here at the black. So you're going to get your watercolor, the black. You will need to mix on a palette. So you're going to need this area to mix. And basically, you are just lowering the opacity of your black color. So I'm going to first paint this. Again, if you want to leave a little space in between these so they don't blend, you certainly can do that. All right, now here's the black. I just dipped my brush in water, and I'm going to add a little bit of water to it, and that will lighten it. I'm going to check it right there. Should be just a little lighter. I'm going to leave a little bit of space so it doesn't run in. I'm going to just add a little bit more water to my brush. I'm going to add it to that right there, and I'm going to check it. That one does not look lighter. There we go. All right, so I'm going to continue down until it gets lighter, 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 and then that one I'm leaving white. I'm not going to paint anything there. I don't have white watercolor. White is just the paper. All right, if you're doing oil pastel, I actually recommend you start with the white side. So you will, want to make sure my oil pastel is clean. You're going to make different mixtures of gray. You're going to do that on the paper. So color the white white. This next one, I'm going to put quite a bit of white covering on there. I'm going to very lightly drag my black. Then I'm going to come back with my oil pastel. And mix it to make a nice light gray. So then the next one is going to be a little bit darker. So I might not mix as much. This one is actually ended up being lighter than that one, so I'm going to add a little bit more black to it. I just lightly scrape the black. Still not darker. I'm going to add more black. So all my mixing happens on the paper. When you're painting, your mixing happens on your palette. All right, if you're going to do color pencil, what I recommend for you to do with color pencil is start on the side with black, and you are going to do 3 or 4 layers with your black color pencil. This is going to be just like how we did with graphite. Except we're not switching pencil grades. So there's my black. The next lighter value, I'm just going to have a few less layers. And then a few less, and then white is going to be the white of the paper. However, if you want to use a white color pencil to mix in with the black, you can. And you're just going to alternate the different layers of black and white pencil to make those grays. So this is going to be a value scale. Let's see if I can finish my watercolor one. All right. Need to be very evenly stepping down. I don't want to make a big jump from one to the next. And after it dries, if it's not quite working, I can add a layer or two to darken. There's going to be my lightest gray. So it looks like these two are about the same. I'm going to go back and add another layer over here. So I want to have these very evenly stepping from light to dark. It also looks like those might be too similar, so I'm going to add just another layer over here. See if that can get it once it's dry. So that is my value scale. Down here, what you're going to do is you're going to practice making tints, tones, and shades. So a tint is a color plus white, a tone is a color plus gray, and a shade is a color plus black. The way I have it set up on the printed out worksheet is a shade equals a color plus black. So if something's in the shade, it's usually darker. A tint equals a color plus white. So a tone equals a color plus gray. All right, underneath each one of them, you're going to have 4 boxes. I use triangles on the worksheet. These are about the size of a quarter. So that means everything in this column is going to be a shade. So a shade of red, a shade of yellow, a shade of blue, a shade of green. Same thing here. They don't have to be triangles. You could make circles. You could do squares. You could do teardrops. They could be all different. They could be all the same, but they're about the size of a quarter. All right, so shade. of red. I'm gonna, again, use my watercolor first, and I'm gonna be mixing. So this is pretty straightforward, I think. I have my red down here. I'm gonna add a little bit of black, and you can see probably that that black just overpowered the red and it doesn't look red anymore. So I've got to add some more red in. Basically, I'm making a darker version of red. And if it still looks black, then you want to remix that color, but it's hard to see here. It is just a very dark red. Let's see if I can do a little bit better job. There, that's more of a dark red. So then I'm going to take yellow and add a teeny bit of black, mix it together on my palette. Then I'm going to do the blue, and then I'm going to do the green. Tint, well, a tint with watercolor is just going to be that color plus water. So make sure your brush is cleaned out really well. These are going to be lighter versions of your primary colors. So I'm going to mix up a lighter version of red, which is pink, a lighter version of blue, a lighter version of yellow and green. Now tone is going to be the tricky one, I guess, with watercolor. Since we don't have a gray color watercolor pan, you're going to take your color, the hue, original hue. So this is red. I'm going to make a tone of red. I'm going to take my already watered down black and add that to just dull it a little bit or darken it a little bit. It's not going to be as dark as my shade. So that's how I do it in watercolor. In oil pastel, I'm going to start with whatever the color is. And if you want to kind of do this at the same time, you can. So this is going to be blue. I'm going to add black to it really lightly. And then I'm going to do most of my mixing or blending on the paper with my blue oil pastel. So that's a darker version of blue. It is blue plus black. It's a shade. Then I'm going to do blue plus white. This one I'm going to do all my mixing with white, because I think if I added my blue back in there, it would be too dark. Wouldn't look like a lighter version or a tint. And then here I'm going to add black and white. So I'm going to take my white and my black. And I'm going to blend with my white. So I've added gray because I added both black and white. All right, the last way that you could do this is with your color pencils. So if I take yellow, so anytime you're painting, you're actually doing your mixing on your palette first. But when we're using drawing media, you're actually doing the mixing on the page. So that's a little bit different process, but you're still mixing from your basic primary colors. Okay. Yellow is actually the trickiest shade to make, no matter what media you're using, just because it's such a light value and you are adding a very dark value or black. So again, you don't want to add so much black that you overpower it and you can't tell. Now for the tint of yellow, you are just going to apply an even light layer of yellow, and then you can leave it. You don't want it, this would be like regular yellow, okay? But that's a tint of yellow in color pencil. So then over here, a tone, we're gonna kind of build up more yellow. We're gonna try to make this tone just a little lighter than your shade. If you have a white color pencil, you can use it to mix in and make that like a gray. So those are all the different options for you. You're going to finish that. So a tint of red, tint of yellow, tint of blue, tint of green, tone of red, tone of yellow, tone of blue, tone of green. So that's the second worksheet. When those are both finished, the color 12-step color wheel is number 1. This is number 2. You will photograph and turn those in.